This episode is brought to you by our great sponsors. BoldGrid works as a suite of plugins designed to help you create WordPress websites faster and easier than ever. BoldGrid will improve your workflow by providing direct access to free themes, page templates, photography, design elements, forms, galleries, and much more right from your dashboard. And the BoldGrid page builder allows you to easily drag and drop and edit this content as you see fit, all without having to use shortcodes. To learn more, head over to buildpodcast.net/boldgrid. That's buildpodcast.net/BOLDGRID. When you have a great idea for your product or business, you need to give it a great domain name. And finding the perfect domain is ridiculously easy with Hover. With Hover, you can easily set up your domain name with the most popular website builders and hosts. You can use Hover Connect to set up your domain automatically in just a few clicks. That's right, no more digging through help articles to find out how to get your domain working. And if you already have a bunch of domains scattered across other domain providers like I did, you can save money by bringing them all into Hover. Eligible domains will include free Whois Privacy with volume discounts. So the more domains you have in your account, the more of a discount Hover will automatically apply to your account. Head over to buildpodcast.net/hover today for 10% off your first purchase. That's buildpodcast.net/HOVER. And now, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome to How I Built It, the podcast that asks, how did you build that? Today, my guest is Diane Kinney. Diane, how are you?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. We have been on Office Hours FM After Hours together, as well as interacted a few times. So I'm glad to get you over here on How I Built It. And we're going to be talking about your book that you are writing with Carrie Dils, right? Called Real World Freelancing.
Yep.
Cool, very cool. So Carrie actually teased this in season 1. I think we recorded right before you announced. So I'm glad to have you as the follow-up. This episode will be coming out hopefully right around the time the book launches. So let's just jump right into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came up with the idea for the book?
Well, I have been running a small business in the marketing and digital space for 16, 17 years, I think, at this point. And I've never really embraced the term freelancer. That's kind of one of my themes. But when we were thinking about, I've given a lot of talks and done a fair amount of mentoring in the business space. And so there's always recurring conversations about, how do I get started if I want to run my own business? Where do I get good advice, right? Because the internet is full of bad advice. Like, take your laptop to the beach, sit in the glaring sun, and you'll make $100,000 just by, soaking up those rays. And there's just bad advice everywhere you turn. Mostly because there's some, kind of motivation around that advice, like take my $6,000 overnight millionaire course, Yeah. And so Carrie and I were chatting about, what do we want to do for a project? We keep having these conversations. Of course, Carrie's got her podcast that's business focused, and I work with her on that quite a bit. And we've done some webinars and different things. And so we kind of got to the evolution of, let's write a book. And then we said to each other, if we're going to write a book, we're going to write a real book. We're not going to write, fantasy. Here's how great your life will be if you buy my book, but a real, positive, but realistic guide to freelancing. And so once we kind of developed that idea, we started talking about, themes, and, we kind of have this spot we're aiming for where it's the, your own version of the survival guide, things you need to think about, plan for, how to, create a marketing plan for yourself. How important is branding yourself? Like, real examinations of some of these things, not just like do this, this, and this, but how important is it? Where does it fit? So we're really excited about that.
That's fantastic. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Anybody who's ever read a business book, my favorite example of this is the 4-Hour Work Week, right? It's because Tim Ferriss, very smart guy, but if you've read the 4-Hour Work Week, it's like, all you have to do is these things and your life will be amazing. Like, that's
amazing.
Yeah, just like you'll work 4 hours a week and you can eat whatever you want. Like, you mentions that somewhere in the book too.
Because that's important.
Yeah, right. So the idea of having just like a legit no BS book, which is what it says on the website realworldfreelancing.com, is great, because it's not, especially at the beginning, starting your own business is not easy.
It is not easy.
And you need to have dedication to do it, right?
You need to have dedication. You need to be prepared. You need to decide if it's even for you, because that's also kind of one of the misnomers, that, everybody should be a freelancer. Everybody should be a business owner. Like that's the aspirational dream of the current generation. Does that really make sense? I mean, some people are more suited to working for others. You really need to do kind of a self-diagnostic of, are you prepared to deal with some things like uncertainty? Owning your own business is always going to have an element of uncertainty. Owning your own business is always going to have an element of stress. Is that stress manageable for you? Or is that stress become somewhat overwhelming for you? These are decisions that you need to make. You can't just blindly say that this is for me. I've bought the book, my life's going to become amazing. And instead you're like a broke, stressed out basket case,
Right.
Not good.
Exactly. And that's great. I mean, the first question you do need to ask is this for me? So you have been, you've been running your own business and doing a lot of things for several years. Carrie Dils kind of in the same boat, right?
Right.
So as you're writing this book, what kind of research, if any, did you do? Did you pull from experience, or did you look for like sources to kind of back up your claims?
Well, one of the things that we did was looked at the landscape of what was being published in this area. You have high-profile books like The 4-Hour Work Week. You have a lot of, I guess, what I would think of as inspirational and promissory kind of books. Mm-hmm. And then you have some like lower level, just like somebody just kind of whipped a book together to get it out there and get a few bucks in their pocket maybe. Yeah. But there really wasn't anything in that kind of middle realm. So we knew we wanted to position ourselves there. And then we have the good fortune, to have so many friends and so many relationships in the business world that, we've each had the opportunity to hear people's stories, people that we can reach out and talk to in more detail, things that we've personally learned, just in terms of, I've been doing this long enough that there literally was no model when I started. Mm-hmm. There was actually no Facebook or Twitter or, any of those things. And so it was completely figure it out as you go. I don't think I opened a business checking account until a client paid me a significant sum of money, and I went to the bank, and I had been, of course, invoiced them with my business name, because I was fancy business, and then I took that check to the bank, and they were like, you can't deposit it.
Yeah.
It's not made out to you. It's made out to a business that does not have a business checking account. It was like, this and then there's a mad scramble, and so you just literally learn every step of the way. And so to be able to, save people from that a little bit, here's some things, you really need to do. You need to understand your taxes. You need to use an accountant. These are unquestionable, precepts to keep yourself on the right path. Then there's a whole wider world of, choices, directions and how you run your business. And my style is kind of, there's no one right answer.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into some of these things, the things that work for some people don't necessarily work for other people, different styles, different markets. And so once you get beyond the basics, it becomes a lot more about advice, suggestions, have you thought about, not necessarily, here's the one true way, to.
Right. And that's another great thing about it sounds like about your book is like you go off and you read these other business books and it's like this is the way I did it and this is the way you should do it.
And it's so common. I mean, I just go on Medium, right? And
Right.
then you look at the freelancing tag and there's 100 articles that say in order to succeed in business you need to get up at 4 a.m. I think specifically, and then you need to take an ice cold shower. Like that's somebody's protocol that's successful. So you need to implement that. And then you need to meditate. And then you need to journal. And then you need to have a wheatgrass smoothie. And then if you do those 7 things, you are going to be a business success. If I had to do those 7 things, I wouldn't even get out of bed. Frankly.
Yeah, my day would be half over and I've done no work.
No. Well, and first of all, if I need to greet the day with an ice cold shower in order to be a business success, I am getting out of business. That's just not what I want to be doing. So there's so much like, woo-woo, right? Like,
Right.
We see this popular figure and he plunges himself into an icy pool of water and now we must all do that, and it's like, no, this is not a critical success factor.
Right. I might have told this story on the podcast before, but I placed 3rd in like this business plan competition, which we could have a whole show about how I feel about business plans in general. And so I was in this incubator and I would get advice from just everybody else who has a successful business. And one guy came in to me and said, you know what you need to do to be successful? You got to wear a suit to work because then you feel professional. I said this on After Hours, I think, right? Yeah. I don't want to wear a suit. I don't want to wear pants. That's the exact thing I said on the show.
I mean, I don't really want to wear pants either. It's like, and that's way more tolerable than the icy cold shower. It's like, no, I don't want to do those things. I don't want to meditate. I don't want to drink wheatgrass. These things are quite frankly appalling to me. But yet I've managed to, keep a business afloat for, I think, 17 years without doing any of those things. So it's possible. You can do it.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we can talk about, I usually ask who you talk to if you're part of a mastermind. And maybe we can kind of package that in a question of what is your advice for someone who wants to be successful? Because I know talking to people is definitely part of that. But what else could go along with that? Icy cold shower or not?
I think the key I think there's 2 keys to being successful. And one is what's your level of fortitude, willpower, zeal, however you want to look at that. Is there something inside of you that keeps you going in the face of challenges or obstacles? And are those possibly even things that make you more determined? Or do you have a tendency to go sit on the couch and be like, oh, I can't do this? That there's an innate quality that separates people. And kind of like we're talking about in the beginning, is running your own business for you. Not unless you have that, kind of warmth and furnace inside of you that's going to focus you on continuing to move forward. Or even if you stop, you regroup and dust yourself off. But if you're someone who you have a certain amount of stubbornness, and you're just going to make it happen. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I believe is the key to success is to give more than you take. And we as a society are kind of trending in the wrong direction, all over the place where, the world is full of quid pro quo, I tweeted your link, you better tweet mine. I, you get emails from people, do this, like I did you some imaginary favor, do this for me,
Right.
and I think that that's a wrong approach. Help as many people as you can. Don't expect anything in return. Give freely. One of the things that has meant so much to me was when I was starting to learn CSS in the days of CSS Zen Garden, and there were a lot of bloggers that were blogging about like detailed technical techniques. And I learned from those people. Like I didn't have to join their email list. I didn't have to, give them anything. I didn't have to make a donation. I didn't have to buy their course. They just gave, of their knowledge. And it benefited them, but it also benefited other people. And I really believe that that is the best possible approach to take, just in terms of a personal philosophy. Try to give something, whatever it is you have to give. It could be time, it could be a listening ear, it could be support, it could be a little bit of knowledge. Here's a better way to do that, but if you can give something instead of just being the consummate kind of taker, I think that is going to make a huge difference in where you end up in business and in life, which are not all that different.
Right. That's excellent advice. Should have saved that question for the end. That would be a great way to end the show. However, we do need to get to the title question, right? So you are writing this book with Carrie Dils. So I've written a few books. I was published by Peach Pit, which was a very interesting process. But self-publishing is something that I've struggled with a little bit. So I would love to know, first of all, if you are self-publishing and how you're doing it, but how are you building the book?
We are indeed self-publishing. Our process has been to use the collaborative tools that we kind of have around us. We tried a couple different things, actually, that went by the wayside, like tools that were specifically designed to make it easy to collaboratively write a book. Didn't work out particularly well. And so we're using a combination of two things. Microsoft OneNote is kind of similar to Evernote, but a little bit different. And we're using that to write collaboratively, and we're using Google Docs. So we're putting our output together in OneNote. I use Google Docs to write sections and pieces, and I'm using that specifically because, and I don't know why this is, but if you install Google Docs on your phone and dictate, it is the most accurate dictation that I've been able to achieve with any tool, app, or anything. Google Docs understands me at a level that, Siri doesn't understand me like that, but Google Docs does. And so one thing that's really hard to do is to sit in front of a device and have good thoughts. You get caught up in how many words am I writing or editing yourself and different things. So by removing ourselves, and this has worked for Carrie too, from sit in front of a keyboard and output words to get in a little bit of a different environment, maybe go to the park, ride your bike. But if you can, talk those thoughts out, and look back and think about, I imagine somebody asking me like, what are the 5 biggest lessons you've learned, or, different things, low points, high points, and then talk through them. It comes much more readily for me than trying to think and type and not getting caught in the editing trap. So get some volume of words going. I mean, we made an outline, sections, and those types of things, but really producing the volume of the words is the key to writing a book, And then we're moving toward the point where, we need to start rounds of editing. And an interesting thing is it's almost a half and half process too, right? We need to write a book, but we also need to market that book. We need to sell that book. And in our case, we are offering packages so you can buy the book, but then you can buy some enhanced packages with additional information, checklists, reference materials, and things that you can actually use. So we also had to plan that out. And we really did that close to the beginning, where we sat down and figured out at least roughly what the vision was for not just the book, but the book as a product. How would it be marketed? How would it be sold? Because we looked at different ways, of selling it. And so you had to figure out both of those, right? You have to write a book, and you have to figure out, even if you work with a publisher, as you know, the publisher wants you to do, some work too.
Right.
So you got to be able to go down those, that dual track. And once we get a couple of rounds of editing in, lucky, for us as a team, I've spent big chunks of my career designing, so I can do layout, I can do website designs, I can do, different things. Like I designed the cover of the book and, that kind of thing. So that makes it a little bit easier, to have that available in-house. So our layout and editing process can kind of overlap a little bit more than in a traditional handoff.
Nice. So a couple of follow-up questions on that are, one, what are you using to lay out the book?
In design.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just recorded a video just this morning about designing an ebook in PowerPoint, because I'm not a designer, but InDesign's totally the way to go there. And how are you going to sell the book? I assume your website is probably WordPress powered. Is that a fair assumption?
It is a fair assumption. It's WordPress powered, and the landing page is built with Beaver Builder.
Ooh, all right.
That was my first time building something with Beaver Builder. So that was a very cool and interesting process. And yes, of course it's built with WordPress. And I'm pretty sure we're going to use WooCommerce to handle the sales process. And that's what we're going to do initially. We're going to sell the book through the website. I think we're also going to sell it through Amazon as an EPUB. And I'm not 100% positive, but there's certain limitations, right? Like initially we thought we would for sure do like the Kindle First program, and we can't sell it on our own website if we do that, for example. Right. So I think we're in a position where we have a little bit more of an audience with our own website than we do on Amazon. So I think we're going to do direct sales first, have an EPUB, and then we may see where we go from there. And, maybe it'll be a fantastic enough book that we'll talk to a publisher, at some point about a print version. So we'll see where all that goes. We're just interested in, the ride and the process.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the beauty of self-publishing, right? Is you can put it out there, and if it is popular enough, you could shop it around to publishers.
Absolutely.
Which is very cool. Awesome. So we've been talking for a while. We're coming up on time, and there are 2 questions I like to ask before the big question. So maybe you can kind of answer this in tandem. What transformations has your book gone through the book writing process? And what are your plans for the future of the book? Let's look at this. Let's assume that this comes out around or just after launch day. What are your hopes and dreams?
I think initially we just had the concept of the book as a book, and the transformation that occurred to us was that it could be more than a book. It could be tools and packages and related materials, and we could make it into, a multi-dimensional experience for people. And we could help them even more, than just reading a chapter. And in terms of hopes and dreams, in all sincerity, I hope that the book helps people. I have conversations all the time with people, and they're doing good, but they feel a little overwhelmed, or they need some encouragement. We got a note from somebody the other day. We have a mailing list for the book, and sometimes people write us notes like, "Is it done yet? Because I need it." Yeah. And someone wrote in and listed out all the things, she was trying to do to start her business. And I mean, I'm pretty good at this, and I couldn't get 20% of those things done, So it's my hope to be able to say to people, you don't have to do everything, here's what's really gonna matter in the long run. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. We don't talk about it enough, in the nerd space, but mental health is a huge issue for people who, work primarily in isolation. They work very hard. There's a personality that maybe is a little introverted, a little prone to, being a little hard on yourself. And, if it makes a difference, just for a few people, I'll be really happy.
That's awesome. That's excellent. Well, we're, depending on when this episode comes out, really looking forward to it, or excited to read it because it's because I got it. So let's end with my favorite question to ask. Do you have any trade secrets for us?
My trade secret is not very sexy, and it's to be super organized.
Super organized. I like it.
It's to be super organized, because I do not have the greatest attention span in the world. And I have a lot of ideas and a lot of different things. And so it's really easy to get off track or forget or see a shiny object. So I have just trained myself, to live kind of by the lists and the folders in the organization. So that's my secret weapon.
Awesome. I like it. And it might not be very sexy, but always function over form, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's get a result.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, Diane, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a great conversation.
Thanks, Joe. I love this show. I've seen every episode, heard every episode.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I'm learning a lot. Hopefully the listeners are learning a lot too. Make sure to check out realworldfreelancing.com. It's definitely going to be a great resource. I can vouch for both authors. They are now both guests of the show. Thanks so much to our great guest and our awesome sponsors, and most importantly, thank you. The show wouldn't be where it is today without your support over the last few months. I couldn't have imagined that this show would be as big as it is. At the time of this recording, I'm approaching 50,000 downloads total in less than a year, and I am ecstatic about that. And for Season 3, I want to learn more about you. So I've put together a survey. If you go to buildpodcast.net/survey, just a little bit of information about who you are and what you do and what you like, so I can deliver the best content for you. Again, that's buildpodcast.net/survey. And once again, thank you so much for listening as we wind down Season 2. I'm really looking forward to Season 3. It's going to be our best yet. And until next time, get out there and build something.